All Things Bike with Fred Thomas is brought to you by Frame and Wheel, eBay selling services for cyclists and bike shops throughout New England, and AD Bikes, the modern face of Austro-Daimler cycling and the bike company of the future.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Fred Thomas, and you are watching another episode of All Things Bike, a new program dedicated to the bicycle, the culture of the bicycle, and the people and organizations that make the bicycle community roll here and away. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. We will be speaking with competitive cyclist Martha Fanning and bicycle commuter Troy Goss. But before we start talking to our guests, I want to let you know that All Things Bike has a website called www.allthingsbiketv.com. And we also have a Facebook page. And you can reach out to us on the Facebook page and find out what's going on the show, and you can even ask to be on the show. That is where All Things Bike can be found. So, Martha, welcome to All Things Bike.
Thanks, Fred. Nice to be here.
Thanks for coming down. I have a question for you. Have you ridden your bicycle today?
I have.
You have?
I have.
Wow.
I have.
You are among the first guests who has ridden their bike today, or on the same day as the show. This is happening on the trainer, I imagine, because there's a lot of snow out there today.
Yes, I was on the trainer, I have to admit.
Good for you.
Yes.
Wow, hardcore.
Yeah.
Now, you were doing that because you're racing, right? I mean, this is what racing cyclists do. They get up in the morning and they ride their trainers before the sun comes up. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you are a competitive cyclist. Is being on the trainer, even when there's snow coming down, part of the routine?
For me, absolutely. I can't speak for other racers or riders, but the trainer for me is in the winter in Maine.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love riding outside, and you know, I've got all the gear and the bikes for it, but when you're pressed for time and it's -10, the basement doesn't look so bad.
It's very productive.
It's very productive.
Right, right. Well, tell us about your racing career. I mean, when did you get started, and how long have you been doing it?
In around 2005, I had 3 babies and 0 social life and very little contact with the outside world. And on a whim, I went to a triathlon 101 clinic at a local shop. And I was so excited because it was instant social life, instant athletics with friends. And I've always been an athlete. I'm a lifelong athlete. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I immediately started competing. This was specifically in triathlon. I moved through the ranks. I did sprints and then Olympics, and then went on to do full Ironmans. So that's when I really started competing. That was my first time really competing on a bike, starting on triathlon, and then I'm burnt out of triathlon and moved to the road.
Wow, right. And what have I mean, that's remarkable. I mean, I don't know how you can run, swim, and ride. How do you compare road to triathlon in terms of satisfaction? I mean, is it harder, easier?
Well, for me, the road has been, when I bought a road bike, it changed everything for me. You can ride fast, you can ride slow, you can ride alone, you can ride with groups. It transformed my world. It's just magical. It's just where I feel the most free, and where I can just really be comfortable outside. And
I've seen you riding with the Portland Velo Club, and you're riding with the boys, and they are boys, and you're keeping up, and it's very impressive. Don't you get nervous when you're riding in a group, big group, a little bit?
Yes, I do.
I mean, they all do. And believe me, everyone in that group is nervous. But
yeah, and that's actually a good thing to remind yourself of too, is that everybody's feeling a little nervous,
exactly.
and you're not alone. I will say, one of the things I love about riding and or racing is that feeling of riding. And the first time I actually rode on that Saturday morning ride, I was floored. I mean, I just was so exhilarated.
Right.
And I remember when the ride ended, I turned to the person next to me, and I remember my exact words. They were, "Give me some more of that." So
wow.
It's not just the adrenaline, though. It's more than the adrenaline. It's the camaraderie. It's the strategy or the tactics. It's, there's a lot of things that go into it.
Describe some of your favorite road races that you've done, or cross races.
As far as races, I have done a lot of cyclocross races, road races. I guess I should say one of my favorites. I'd be remiss if I didn't say the Yarmouth Clam Festival bike race.
Indeed.
In Yarmouth, Maine, is an awesome bike race, which I've done. Love it. I've done a couple of races in Maine. Sadly, there aren't a lot of women's races in Maine that actually happen. So I've also done a lot of cyclocross, and I also mountain bike.
Right. Well, it can explain a little bit about the women's racing scene. Is it large, or does it have any features that are worth highlighting?
Well, the women's, that's a tricky question.
Oh no.
Well, it's not a simple answer. From my personal perspective, the women's racing scene in Maine, there really isn't one, sadly. Which isn't to say there aren't a ton of great women's cyclists, recreational cyclists. I mean, there's a myriad of tons of women on the road, but there's not a lot of racing in Maine. In New England, there's more. At least that's all that I could speak to, really. So you do see a lot of women. You do see more women's races at some of the more established road races. The problem, of course, is turnout always with women.
Right. Yeah, but there's usually a few events that are just larger in scale, and it's true. The racing in New England is getting smaller and smaller for some reason. So, but I've seen at the larger events there are women's categories, and it looks great. It looks like they're having fun. I mean, how do you reckon you could get more women to get out there and race? And what would be the thing to say that might bring them out?
Again, not a simple answer, but I think women just need to show up. Right. I think women just need to show up. I think that there's some strange, mysterious algorithm that goes into women's decision making around racing. It has to do with the weather. I'm only going to do it if you do it. The ride. There's all kinds of factors that come into play, and I think women get a little intimidated. And I, for one, was definitely intimidated until I just started doing it. And I realized, it's just like a ride. It's the same thing. It's just there's a lot of hoopla around it, but it's that's true. It's all about riding your bike.
Yeah, but that's a good point. You never really know until you try. But how about around in Maine, just in the less the less competitive scene, group rides and club rides. Where could some women go for rides that are not competitive that you know of?
There are so many great rides in the greater Portland area. We're lucky. We have several great bike shops that host local weekly rides. And so there are so many options for women. There are women-only rides. There are co-ed rides that go at all different paces. I mean, all you need to do is contact the local shop and look to see what rides they offer. There's beginner rides, there's advanced rides. I mean, it's great. There's so many choices.
Yeah, the Portland Velo Club, I'm certain, has a women's group.
Yep.
And that's fantastic. What about races for next year? Or do you have any objectives or goals that are on the calendar, as they say? Kona,
I do.
maybe?
I do. Kona. I actually weirdly got into Kona and didn't actually go.
Well, it's a long way to go.
Yeah, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
But
Next
regardless,
time.
I don't know if I'll ever go back to triathlon. But yes, I do have sort of a racing schedule ahead for this season. I'm still sort of working it out in my head.
For road and mountain bike?
Road and mountain bike, and probably some cyclocross next fall, depending on how much energy I have left.
Yeah. I mean, explain about that. Cyclocross is hugely popular, and there's not a huge group of people. It's shorter. It's easier to get to. What's the attraction for you for cyclocross?
I love riding off-road as well, and that was something I discovered after being on the road consistently. I just actually went with a friend down to Gloucester to watch some cyclocross racing, and someone had an extra bike, and I said, oh my God, this looks really cool. I just want to try it. So that was at a time when you could actually sign up the day of. And so I just jumped in a race randomly with 10 minutes to go, and I had a blast, and that's how I started cyclocross. And I love it. It's beautiful, it's fun, it's short, and it's just a nice change from the road.
The bikes are cool too. It's fun to
The bikes are cool. All bikes are cool.
Are you going to retire from racing at some point, or do you sort of envisage yourself entering the masters category, 60 plus, 70 plus?
I don't know. I'll just probably go until I'm just not feeling it anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's true. You can still ride your bike. You don't always have to race.
Yeah, definitely. I will always. I have sort of 3 mantras that I go by that I want to keep things in perspective, and it's sort of philosophical, but they work for me. The first is it's just a bike ride. The second is getting dropped is a part of life. Yeah. And the third is have fun.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I really try to just use that as a framework and hopefully stay healthy.
Yeah, it's transferable to life in general. Well, that's great, Martha. Well, thanks so much for coming down and for talking bikes. And
it was great.
We will see you again,
thanks for having me.
on the various rides.
Awesome, thanks.
That was Martha Fanning of the Portland Velo Club and the local racing scene. We are going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will be speaking to Troy Goss, a full-time bicycle commuter.
When you see bicyclists riding in the travel lane, it's usually because they're avoiding unsafe situations at the road's edge. Bicyclists have legal rights to use the road just as other vehicles do. Treat riders as you would any other slow-moving vehicle. Wait until it's safe to pass, and give them at least 3 feet when you go by. It's safe, it's courteous, and it's the law. This safety message was brought to you by the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. We're Maine's voice for better bicycling.
Good evening, everybody. We are back, and we have Troy Goss, a bicycle commuter. Troy has been commuting by bike to and from work for a long time, and we're very pleased to have him on the show. Troy, welcome to All Things Bike.
Fred, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, I always seem to ask people, did you ride your bike today? But today, since there's 6 inches of snow out there, I understand that you decided not to, which is very smart.
But I actually did ride.
You did?
I did, but it was rollers.
Oh my gosh.
Rollers, no road.
You guys, I didn't ride my bike today. I am completely out of whack with the vibe here.
So I have a day up on you. I feel good.
You do. That's good. Well, but you are doing something that is very macho and very, very impressive, which is riding your bicycle every day on the roads to work. How long have you been doing that?
I've been commuting by bike for, this will be my 9th year.
9th year.
Yeah.
Wow. And every single day, even if it's raining?
No, not every single day. I kind of use the daylight savings as a guide.
Yeah.
The fall usually tends to taper off because of daylight.
Yeah.
Lights have gotten better, so it's a little more safe now to be out at night. And then springtime, with the days extending in February, roads clearing up, I use that first daylight savings of March.
Right, so that's great. I mean, because I think a lot of people, when they think of a bicycle commuter, they're like, he's out there every day. I'm a case in point.
Right.
So you have a schedule and you have some a mechanism for judgment. Can you explain the routine? Like, you get up, do you have to add an extra hour to your alarm clock type of thing, or how does it work?
I think with anything, you figure out a schedule that works. And over the years, my commuting stemmed from being out of the sport to getting back into the sport, which I dabbled in racing with you guys. It was a good way to get 2 days in and get some base miles in. And then every year it evolves into a little more and more.
Right.
I'd say there's a lot of planning that initially goes into it. Obviously, the way you drive to work isn't typically how you're going to ride to work.
Yeah.
Portland kind of becomes a bottleneck to get through, whether you're coming from the south or how you go through it. So a lot of the plan initially goes in how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
Clothes. I think I've had 2 really great employers over the last 9 years that have been very commuter friendly. Right. A good culture at work with bikers. Obviously, you've got clothes hanging around. Most of us don't like to leave our bikes outside, so is it okay to bring the bike in the office? There's little stuff like that goes into play. Obviously, it helps to have a shower.
Well, yeah, that's on everyone's mind in the height of summer.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have to have a shower? Is it possible if there is no shower at your destination?
I personally wouldn't, because again, I treat it a lot like a training ride.
Right.
Also,
so you're.
My distances vary from 15 to 25 miles, depending upon which way I'm going. So for me, a shower is a must. I think my employees and fellow coworkers appreciate that there's a shower there. As you said, in the summertime, again, the cool down period's pretty extended. So
well, okay. Well, that's good to know. What about the equipment in the winter? I mean, you got snow and this. I mean, what kind of bike would you use?
To me, springtime usually late spring poses the issue of what you wear to work isn't always what you're going to wear home.
Right.
I've gotten past the phase of I don't like riding with a backpack anymore. So I tend to either load up the backpack on Monday, or if I drive my car in, I keep clothes at the office, food, spare tubes.
Right.
I recommend buying a bike pump, save the CO2 cartridges for roadside. Lubricants.
What about but lights too? I mean,
Yeah.
You're riding at night, right?
Yes. Again, it's a little more. I ride at night now, but more dusk. Again, I've got to me, every ride is successful when you get home. Yeah. And I see a lot of guys out there riding, guys and girls riding with their lights. I tend to kind of keep it to the daylight if I can.
Yeah. Well, that's sensible, right? You want to be visible, and because there are still more cars than bikes out there.
Right.
What about your style of riding? How do you ride when you're a commuter compared to when you're on a training ride? Or
well, there's definitely a big difference on when you're commuting versus riding in the groups that we ride with. As I was saying, you tend to ride small. I personally believe stay as far to the right as you can. Yeah. At the end of the day, it really is the roads are built for cars. Again, the difference between commuting and whether you're out on a group ride or just on a training ride, our training rides tend to take us in a non-populated area because you're not really going to want to ride through the populated areas. So I've also learned being courteous on a bike goes a long way. I do a lot more waving on the bike, and even just a simple take your hand up off the grip to let a guy know that he's coming through. Or you wave. Certain people are nervous to pass you wave them through. Just overall courtesy. I've had very few run-ins with an angry
That's a great point, because that is also applicable to, the training ride,
Right.
Or a solo ride, even if you're out there riding your road bike. A wave, an acknowledgement, goes a long way.
Yeah, simple courteous gestures on a bike. And at the end of the day, like I said, it's us versus a car, and I'm not really
it might be
for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Up for that challenge too often.
Yeah, it might be a tough battle. Are you using a mountain bike?
No, I commute on my regular road racing bike.
It's a road bike. Okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so if you're commuting, you don't necessarily need a heavier, larger bike. We have time, I think, just for maybe one last sort of question, general question. I mean, what have there been any really great moments, great stories that you can think of as a result of your bicycle commuting?
Well, every day on the bike is good and every ride is good, but probably more of a humorous side of things was like, the weatherman's not always right, as we know. I was riding on a Monday with all my clothes. I have a bag inside of a bag to try and keep. Well, I got caught in a downpour. Well, unfortunately, my 2 pair of dress pants were in the bag and conveniently were drenched from the waist section up. So for the first 3 or 4 hours of work, I walked around with some wet pants.
Character development,
it was,
I'm sure. Yeah. Well, that's great, Troy. Well, thanks for explaining how it is to commute on the bicycle. It's very useful and very interesting. Thanks for coming down. I'm glad you didn't ride.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Anytime. That was Troy Goss, bicycle commuter. That is that, and we will be taking a short break. And don't go away. We will be talking with John Baldwin, who is going to give us a bike tour.
Three feet could mean the difference between life and death. Give at least 3 feet of clearance when passing bicyclists. It's the law. Learn more about bicycle safety at www.bikemaine.org.
Good evening, everybody. We are back, and we have John Baldwin of Gorham Bike and Ski, who is going to give us a bike tour of a commuter bike. John?
Hey, Fred.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Good to have you back.
Thank you.
We got a commuter bike here. Wow, it looks cool.
Thank you.
What are some of the key features about a commuter bike?
Well, this is a custom commuter bike I built for a customer. It's not mine. This commuter bike I brought because it kind of outlines a lot of the things that I'd like to see on commuter bikes.
Right.
A way to bring your cargo.
Yeah.
In this case, a really large rack with some monster panniers made by our own customer, Jim Hubner.
That's right.
Out of Cape Elizabeth.
Right,
Makes these
right.
nifty lobster basket traps. Also full-length fenders, which are good for keeping yourself dry, even if it's not raining, if there's puddles on the road, especially in the spring. It's really good for keeping water off you and the bike.
Off your pants, yep, absolutely.
Exactly. This is also a bike that doesn't employ rim brakes, which are pretty old tech at this point.
That's right.
So, has a front disc brake that's hydraulic and a rear drum brake. So it's kind of showing 2 different kinds of brakes you could use for a commuter bike.
Right, very effective. What about the gearing? This has got internal single-speed gearing. What's unique about that?
Well, you don't have to mess with a derailleur that's on the outside of a bike. So it's in this case, you can go usually between 3 speeds, or actually 2 speeds, and up to 18 speeds.
Really?
Internally. This current one is 7-speed.
But it does not have the front derailleur, so you don't have to worry about getting your pants stuck in the front derailleur like we have all done through the courses of our bicycle lives. What about the visibility aspect? We have some lights and mirrors. What about that?
Yeah, my friend Eric, this is his bike, doesn't have quite as much light as I would like to see a commuter have. But he has a front and rear light, so he's legal. The bike, actually, I don't know if you can see in the lighting, is actually treated with some reflectivity. So if you had some light coming right at it, like from a side street, another car, this would be blindingly bright. And that's like a 3M reflective spray paint.
In the paint?
Yep, in the paint that we did after the fact at his behest.
Oh, nice, nice. Well, that's important. I mean,
cool
visibility is key when you're commuting every day. How about the pedals? Are these standard for commuter bikes?
Yeah, most people tend to get around with platform pedals.
Right.
There's a lot of clipless options out there that have walkable sole shoes.
Right.
So you can, if you are going to your destination and, like let's say you're going to Whole Foods or something, you're going to be walking around on linoleum or marble or whatever else. It's going to be harder to do that with your SPDSL road clips.
Yeah, that's right.
And much easier with a walkable sole shoe. So, I mean, plenty of people do clipless as well as platform.
Yeah, that's true. I guess, it's what you're accustomed to. And mirrors, is that standard or is that recommended or?
I don't use them, but a lot of people, I think, like them just to feel safe, that they can see cars approaching them from behind.
Yeah.
I guess I've heard that it's a good idea to use them for a while you're getting accustomed to riding in traffic.
Right.
So you know that there's really nothing to be afraid of, and then get rid of them because they're kind of superfluous.
Yeah. Wow. Well, how much does this bike weigh? I mean, it's big. This
bike is pretty beefy, but it's probably, I would say, about 40 pounds. And commuter bikes do not have to weigh that much.
I see, right. And is this one, it's aluminum, right? So
yep, it is an aluminum frame with a steel fork.
Okay.
And there's a monster headset stack going on,
right.
major steer tube. So there's a lot of weight on this bike.
Yeah, right. So it's a lot of that weight is in the wheels as well as the frame.
Yeah.
Well, that's looking good. I think if you're going to commute, you want to make sure that you've got the right equipment, and it looks like a bike like this would be a good way to start.
Yeah.
That's great, John. Thanks for coming down and giving us that bike tour.
Anytime.
And we'll see you again soon. All right, everybody, that is all the time we have for this episode of All Things Bike. Thank you very much for watching, and you can find out more about the show on allthingsbiketv.com. That's our website, and you can also find out more about the show on our Facebook page. Please reach out to us on the Facebook.
Pause and rewind that. I didn't get the right framing on you anyway.
That's
all right.
On what? On the outro?
Just the outro.
Oh, well, that's
okay.
all right, I guess.
Nice and short. That's it for All Things Bike today.
But-
Check us out on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Our website, and have a good night. Keep it nice.
Yeah, no, because I just can't tell what the timing is. I just have to figure something out.
It takes practice.
Yeah.
All right, just do the handshake one more time.
Okay. Ready right now?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks so much, John. Thanks for coming down. That was John Baldwin of Gorham Bike and Ski doing the bike tour, and that is all we have time for this episode. Check us out on Facebook. Visit allthingsbiketv.com to learn more about the show, and we will see you next time.